So welcome back to Timo's Dinky Detailing. So today I'm going to be doing a Hudson. I did a Hudson before, this same model, and if you remember the previous one, I had no base on it. I had to manufacture my own base. This one does have a base, and I did the old one as a restoration. I chose colors that were originally done on this model. And this one has similar colors, different colors, but the same pattern. But I don't want to use this. I want to make one that looks like the real Hudson, because I think Dinky kind of dropped the ball on this one, and they came up with kind of poor color choices, and also it's not matching what the actual car came out in from the factory. So we'll get started as usual. First thing, it goes into the milling machine, and I'm drilling out the rivets. And it's a little bit tricky holding these things in the vise in the milling machine, because they're not square objects. I can't clamp them too hard or they're going to crack the casting. So that's why I'm putting my thumb on the other end so the thing doesn't rock. It's also not square, right? So it doesn't. It's not going to hold properly in the vise. So anyway, I got these rivets drilled out, and then while it's in the mill, I put in a tap drill. I'm going to be putting 440 imperial threads in these, because that's what I have tooling for. Everything is imperial in my shop. So I'm going to be tapping this, and I've got my spiral point tap. Actually, it's a spiral flute tap. So this is a tap that you can see I've got my spring-loaded tap guide, and this tap is a spiral fluted tap. So what happens is, as you go in, the swarf it comes out instead of being pushed forward. Spiral pointed tap will push the swarf forward through a through hole. When you have a blind hole, it's better to use this kind of tap. So now I get the base off, and I get the axle in the front, and the rear one is out. So now I put screws into those tapped holes. So when I'm doing all the other work on this thing, stripping paint and putting new paint, it protects those holes from getting crap in them, so I won't have to tap them just to clean them out again. So this is rust remover, and I'm putting the base in there. There's some rust on it. It's in pretty good shape. The rust has come off, and then there's this coating. I'm not sure if it's paint or if it's bluing, but generally when I use the rust remover, the color comes off as well. I use a wire brush to help it along a little bit. So here's the front axle. It's got mushrooms on the end of both ends of the axle. So my old way of doing it is take it off with a file, and I could just cut this axle in half, but I'm going to replace it with my new style of axle, and I want to know how long it needs to be. So the tires on these are dried up, and of course they just crack, so I'm taking those off. I'm going to replace those with O-rings. That one was pretty good actually, but it's better just to replace all 4 of them. So now for stripping, I put some boiling hot water in there and some caustic soda. And this is outside on the deck. So here the paint has been stripped off, and I'm going to clean up a little bit where they have the casting lines. Try and make the body look a little bit smoother. And so I go on both sides, and generally I go around and I look for any imperfections and file them all clean. And it's a bit of work, and I show a little bit of it, but of course it takes a little bit longer to do all of it. And I go then into the drill press where I have a buffing wheel, and I buff the whole thing down. Some people use the Dremel tool for doing this. The Dremel tool is pretty slow. This is a faster way of doing it, and I get the thing pretty well cleaned up, so that's ready for paint. And then try not to touch it too much with my hands so I don't have to take off the oil from my hands. Now the hubs, I polish them. On this one I want to make it, these cars had a lot of chrome on them, so I want to make this one to look very chromed up. So I'm taking these hubs and I'm polishing them on the grinding wheel with a buffing wheel, and I'm polishing them up so that they're a chrome-like finish. They're just beautiful, like a mirror. And I'm going to put these instead of painting them, because these cars, they would have been right into chrome. So this one's going to have chrome wheels, chrome wheel covers, everything is just going to look beautiful and shiny, because that's what they did in the 50s. These cars were spectacular. They wanted them to look even more spectacular. So after buffing, of course, got to wipe off the waxy film that's left on top and make it mirror finish. And while I'm there, I might as well put some tires. So these are the washers. They're plumbing washers. They're exactly the right size, and you can look for the link in the description below, and I will tell you where you can get these. And that's a beautiful, cheap way of getting tires for these classic Dinky toys before they started making fancier tires. So it's going into the spray booth and getting some gray primer. And in this case, I'm going to be using two tones. So the gray primer is important because it's gray, and it's going to be two-tone gray model. So this primer coat is important in this case. So here I'm doing the base, and my usual way is I have a super magnet. The base is made of steel, and then I've got the piece of baking paper, Teflon paper, so that the paint doesn't stick if there's some overspray. So that way I'm able to hold that base and paint it. I have to do it in two steps, obviously. Got to wait for this step to dry, and this is the inside, and then I do the outside later on. So here's the primer is on, and I always go in and I clean up the paint, and I sand the primer coat and clean it up so that it's nice and smooth. So this one's going to need a lot of taping. So first of all, it's going to be two-tone. So most of the body is the one color, and just this side part, which has it's part of the body shape. So I'm putting the tape on. This is the way that these were painted when they did the two-tone. One of the ways they painted them was this side portion that was actually pressed into the sheet metal. That's where they created the line. I think Dinky could have done this. I think they did it slightly differently. That made it easier from the factory for different models that I didn't do. But I'm doing this one, so it's a custom model. It's not a restoration per se. Maybe the next one I'll do it as a restoration. But the first one I did, it was done as a restoration. So this is the curvy tape. It's stretchy. It's kind of like electrical tape, and it's good for going around curves. So when you use this tape, obviously I'm not going to use the expensive tape on the whole thing, so then I just use the painter's tape to finish off that section that's got to be protected. Now this is a different trick I'm using. The paint tends to bleed under the tape. So my trick here is to use the pledge. This is a floor gloss that people use to fix their windshields and all sorts of things, and you can use it as a lacquer for the entire paint job. So I'm brushing it on to the edges of the tape so that I prevent the spray paint from spilling over into the part that's been taped up. So I'm doing this as an experiment, and I'm doing here just the two-tone. So the part that I've taped up is obviously going to be gray, and that's just the primer, so that's going to have to be covered with a clear coat. And now I'm mixing a darker gray, and this is tricky to do because it's got to be a very dark gray, but it obviously has to be gray, not black. So I'm finding out that to make the thing gray, I've got to put a lot of white paint into the black before it turns actually gray. This is something that you learn when you're mixing these paints. So there I've got it to the point where I want it. I want it to be this kind of gray. So from a distance it might look black, but it's gray. So this is my Mr. Hobby paint, and it uses this paint or this thinner. That's the leveling thinner. So this is a slow drying thinner, so when you spray it on, the paint has time to smooth out and become more shiny after you've sprayed it. So I use this all the time, every time I'm spraying something. Of course, in this case, I'm spraying it over the tape of a surface that's completely matte, so it doesn't matter how shiny I make it, it's going to have to get a coat of lacquer anyway, otherwise the light gray is not going to be shiny. So here I'm painting it out of focus, but anyway, you'll have to live with that. So there it is coming out, and I peel off the tape, and because I put that floor polish onto the tape, it's gonna be much more. I'm more confident that this is gonna work. And sure enough, I peel it off, and it's absolutely perfect. So this is something I'm going to be using every single time I'm taping up a model, especially for two-tone or for anything. I'm going to be using the floor polish to prevent paint from getting under the tape. It's a brilliant idea. I've tried it before. I tried it before with the paint, and it didn't work because when I peeled the tape off, I used a spray paint and it peeled the entire new coat of paint off and left the spray paint behind. It didn't work, but brushing this stuff on is working perfectly. So I've got my two-tone pattern now, and this is the way these cars were painted. I believe they were painted this way in the factory. There are probably a lot of selections that you could make. So now to do the headlights, I'm going to be taping these up, because if I don't get these right, especially if I'm using a very dark color like this dark gray, and try to paint the headlights with a very light color like silver or white, unless I don't have a steady enough hand to paint a perfect circle. So I'm going to a lot of trouble, and on this one I'm actually going to an extreme, and this is a special episode because on this car one of the things is it had loads of chrome. Chrome was everywhere, and this is what makes this car special. Was it's one of these American 50s cars, early 50s, and it had chrome on it, and that was the whole thing. The more chrome the better. And so it's kind of a spectacular car if you see one of these in real life. So I'm trying to get that effect, and you're going to see this is a special episode because I'm using a new technique to get that chrome. So because I'm doing that, I'm going nuts with the taping, and I'm taping up. I'm going to be doing the window frames, which is kind of a crazy thing to do on these tiny models, but I'm going whole hog on this, and I'm going to be doing it because it's the first time, and this is actually an episode that's promoting something. I haven't seen any of the other restorers or customizers that have used this process before to create the chrome. So I'm even thinking about making a separate video just showing the process of doing this chrome painting. So this is a lot of taping. I spent a huge amount of time doing this taping. And you can see even the door handles are taped, and then there's this bit of chrome for the license plate frame and the bumpers.
Okay, so I've done all that taping.
Now this is what's special. This is Revel chrome spray.
Revel chrome spray.
And this is very expensive. And I got this at a local hobby shop. It's far enough away that I don't go there very often.
Most of
but it's $50 a can. It's not
chrome.
cheap.
So this one is supposed
but I saw a guy on
be
YouTube, and he was very impressed with it.
I'm going to be, for the first time, trying this stuff out. I've not seen any.
Give this a try because
people using
I have a lot of trouble using.
And so I've done all this taping for this
Molotov
to try this stuff out.
Chrome.
It's very expensive.
Paint
I went
that
to
you brush on, or you
local
use
hobby shop and found
marker
it.
pens, and I've got 3 of the different sizes of the marker pens. It's a problem. Sometimes
over $40
the paint will blob out. And other times there's not enough, and you never get a clean, consistent
preparation.
So here I've got a spoon
for the
with
toy,
the paint
so I'm going to test it out
that I painted while I was painting the body. So I'm going to experiment with this. So here I've put tape, and I've painted the chrome, and it's beautiful. This is the first time I've used it. You can see that you can see reflection of my cell phone that's videotaping this thing, and it's a beautiful chrome finish. It's just stunning, and this is something I've never seen before. So this is actually very, very special paint. So testing the taping, and when I peel the tape off, it comes off very clean. So that's a very good sign.
That looks pretty clean.
So nice clean edge, beautiful chrome finish. Peeled off those other parts, and you can see there's a little bit of lines there, and on one side it's the chrome paint bleeding underneath, and the other side it's actually the floor lacquer that's bleeding underneath. So in the case of the floor lacquer, you can kind of buff that down so it's not so obvious. And so here you can see I've done this test, so I'm putting the floor lacquer where the tape is, and I'm thinking I want to have one of those cry-cut machines and cut out my masking tape to the exact shape of these door handles and this chrome trim. So anyway, I've done it here manually with the tape, and you can see I've painted the whole thing chrome, and the thing looks fantastic even with all that tape on it. Testing it just to see if I put my finger where the tape is, and it's getting to the point where it's dry. This is about 10 minutes after I spray painted it. So I take off the bits of paper towel and the wheel wells. There's all these little bits of tape that I've put on here. You can see I peel off the big piece, and there's a bunch of little pieces left around those door handles. And I have a lot of trouble with door handles. That's why I wanted to do this with taping. Maybe it takes a little more time, and I wanted to see if I can get a better result than if I just go in there with a brush and put the Molotov chrome paint on there. And I'm not good at that. My hands shake, and I can't get it just to be perfect. But with the taping, theoretically, I could make it perfect. So there's a lot of tape to take off. I mean, it's crazy. It's nuts. That's another reason why this video is so late, because look how much work I put into getting this darn thing taped up. And this is my fast version of taking the tape off. You didn't even see the whole putting the tape on. It's just crazy. So there's a lot of time involved in this toy. So getting off these last bits, and really nothing was bleeding anywhere. There's a little bit of bleed from the floor polish, and I buffed that off, and there was little places there on the front grill, so I mixed some paint up, and you can see all the little bits stacked up after taking that off. So a little change of pace now, leave the model behind to dry and get these axles ready. So I measured the original axle, and here I'm cutting it off It's in the block with the 5C collet, and I marked it for the exact length. I put it on top of there because it's hot after grinding it with the Dremel tool. And here you can see I've got the original. This is the front axle. So I've cut it to the exact length that the original one would be, and then I'm going to be putting my axle ends onto that axle. Now I find that if I don't clean, at least to take the burr off of the inside of the hole, that my nail that goes in as the axle end is sticking out a little bit. So I'm taking off the burr, just doing it by hand. I'm not really making a proper chamfer inside that axle, but I don't need a lot. So here are my axle ends. These are little upholstery nails, and I'll put the link below. And now that I've put that, see how it sits much more flat, so it's not sticking out. Now these ones, they've got a kind of an artificial brass finish, so I buff them for like 2 seconds on the buffing wheel. Okay, did it for 4 seconds. But there, it's all polished up. And when I go on the bench, then I'm going to wipe it down because it's got that, there's the wax that the buffing compound is on. And there, it looks like beautiful mirror finish. So I do that in this case just for 2 ends, because the back axle goes in between the body. It doesn't have any axle ends. So here's my 5-minute epoxy from the dollar store, which is way better than the Monkey brand that you pay 5 times as much at the hardware store. And so here I'm making that front axle. I'm choosing, in this case, I'm choosing the best hubs because these are going to be the visible ones. The back ones are not visible, and anything on the inside obviously isn't visible either, so I have to choose the right end. So there I've got my polished axle end going in, and then flip it over to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm going with the toothpick with the 2-part epoxy, and there I'm put my finger on the other end so I push it out properly. So I can get the epoxy glue in there, and then I can put my axle end in. I tried to do this on a previous model with a hobby glue, ordinary hobby glue, water-based glue. It didn't work out so well, so I'm back to using at least a 2-part epoxy. It's worth the extra effort because this is it's a better solution than just using a water-based. Just like a white glue, hobby glue. This is better, and so I'm going to do this from now on. It just takes 30 seconds to mix up some epoxy. So my headlights are silver, and I like to make them white because I find when you paint them white, it looks like the headlights are on. So here I'm using, this is a tool for that ladies use to paint fingernails with dots. These are dot painters. So there's just a ball on the end of this thing, and you dip it in the paint, and it makes a perfect circle. So I just keep repeating the process until I make a bigger circle, because you're not going to be able to get a dot painter this big that can do a whole headlight. So on the back, I do use the same tool to get the tail lights. They're sticking up, so it's kind of simple to put paint on it instead of a brush. And I'm going to be putting an interior and windows on this model. So here I 3D printed a model, and this was the first try. I'm getting good at this. So I just designed one thing, printed it out. I had to file a little bit for the back, but I didn't have to use too much material because this was the first print. So I modeled the steering wheel right into it. I don't like printing a separate steering wheel and cutting all the little bits off and trying to slip it into the hole and glue it in place. I just printed the steering wheel straight into the seats. And I mean, if you look really closely, it's not perfect, but nobody's going to see it when you're looking through the windows. You're happy if you see that there's a steering wheel in there. So I'm painting the wheel wells darker, and now this is I'm putting the windows in. So I've got this plastic. This is just from packaging for croissants you get from the grocery store, and the package has beautiful clear plastic that's easy to work with, and it's so I'm cutting it to the shape. The passenger window and the driver's window are going to be open, so I'm just putting windows for the back windows, the rear window, and the windscreen is made from a plastic shot glass. So I cut a piece of the shot glass out because it's exactly the right diameter for that curved front window. I lost the video where I was cutting that. I don't know where it went. So I've lost a bunch of stuff. My phone is letting me down. But anyway, you can see that it's a nice curved piece of plastic. And I cut it out because it's just the right size. So I put the two-part epoxy again, and I tape them all in place, and then once the epoxy is dry, I can just peel the tape off and they're in position perfectly. They're not going anywhere. So this worked out very well too. So now all the parts are ready. I'm wearing a glove because actually this toy has that chrome paint on it, and I've been handling it a lot, and the chrome has not suffered at all. If I did this with the Molotow chrome, every time you touch the chrome, it just takes the shine out of it. But in this case, I've been doing all kinds of crap in between because this has taken a whole summer to do, and the chrome has not suffered at all. I have to say, that's the most fantastic chrome paint, and I'm not going to use anything else anymore, except maybe in an emergency. So there you can see the yellow from the seats. So got to fix that because I don't want that yellow showing through. So I'm just going to hit it with the gigantic Sharpie marker, because I want the thing to, I want it to look decent. I don't want that the seats to show through. And there, it looks black now. Nobody will notice it. If you pick the thing up off of the display case and look underneath, it's not going to be really obvious that you can see that interior. Now I'm using fresh screws. These are 440 button head cap screws, and they're stainless steel, and I think I'm just going to use these. When I'm using the painted ones that paint the color of the body, that's really cool, but the paint goes into that hex socket head and it makes it hard to screw them in. And these ones, they look like rivets too. So just to remind you where we started out with the model that needs to be done, see what it looks like now. So now we have it in the livery of the way it would have come out of the factory. Lots of chrome. It has dark colors. This is like a limousine. So they would have a dark gray and then a light gray accent color. And in this case, I've done the window frames and interior and glass, and I think this has come out pretty fantastic. So, and I apologize again for the delay on this model, but I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky Detailing. It was 3 months in the making, and I'm pretty happy with it. And I can't wait to do the next model, which is going to be a straight restoration model. So don't forget to like and share and to subscribe to my channel. That's the only chance I have to get this thing rolling. So please do that. And until next time, be seeing you.